Before we jump into today's discussion, please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and help me reach that 10,000 subscriber milestone. I genuinely appreciate every single one of you who has been rocking with me so far and supporting the content as it grows. Don't forget to turn on that notification bell so you get alerts every time I upload new videos. Now, with that said, we have to address something that has been unfolding online in real time. And honestly, the more you look at it, the more layers there are to unpack. Today, we need to talk about Claressa Shields and Papoose, and specifically the public behavior that has unfolded this week surrounding Rihanna, social media clout, strategic posting, and what honestly feels like a calculated attempt at elevation through association. Let's begin with the Papoose side of this situation, because his part in this narrative actually starts months before Rihanna ever typed a word. Papoose effectively disappeared from social media after that situation involving 50 Cent, where 50 publicly threw shots at both him and Claressa. What's interesting about that period is that Papoose had been extremely vocal in his online presence for years, especially during his marriage to Remy Ma, consistently presenting himself as the devoted husband, the embodiment of Black love, and a figure who leveraged public perception as part of his branding. However, when 50 Cent came at him, the entire energy shifted. Papoose went completely MIA. No cryptic posts, no meaningful rebuttal, not even a passive-aggressive story. He vanished. Then, a short while later, he briefly resurfaced when there were suspicions that 50 thought a song Papoose recorded back in December might have been a diss track. But once the dust settled on that speculation, he disappeared again. So the question becomes, what is Papoose actually doing besides waiting for an opportune moment to reinsert himself into the discourse? Because the pattern here suggests that he isn't reappearing for resolution or clarity or to control the narrative. He's reappearing only when the situation becomes beneficial to him or when it aligns with a moment of heightened visibility, and that theme becomes very important later when Rihanna enters the picture. Now let's shift to Claressa Shields, because her end of this situation is arguably more blatant and more strategic. Claressa has been extremely active on Twitter, or X as we are now calling it, and over the past week she has quoted Rihanna not once but twice, each time in a way that clearly signals that she wants acknowledgement from Rihanna and from the digital audience watching. One of the Rihanna quotes she reposted referenced being with a good man, and Claressa responded, "Period, Rihanna. The only way to be about a good man is the good man in the room with us." That phrasing alone tells you everything about her intention. She wanted to publicly align herself with Rihanna's statement, but she also wanted to subtly center herself in that narrative, implying that she too is with a good man, which is interesting considering the public uncertainty around her relationship with Papoose. Then she retweeted a Shade Room post, quoted Rihanna again, and wrote, "If I ain't the greatest, who is?" while attaching a meme of herself. This was followed by Claressa using that same window of attention to push her merch, which is important because it tells us the attention wasn't just emotional or personal, it was transactional. This is classic clout monetization. Build momentum, get eyes, and immediately convert that visibility into sales. Nobody is saying that's illegal or immoral, because influencer culture thrives on that exact tactic. But the point is, it shows the intent. It wasn't organic, it was opportunistic. Shortly after, Claressa quoted someone saying, "For people to not like you, they sure will watch the fuck out of you." Claressa replied, "Lol, I'm really loved." The irony of that statement is that it suggests she is both aware of the criticism she receives and aware of how that criticism drives traffic. And then we jump platforms. She hops over to Snapchat. The day before all of this, she was in her car listening to Janet Jackson's "I Get Lonely," which is a very interesting emotional tone to set publicly. But now that Rihanna finally acknowledges her, suddenly it's a full glam look, hair done, makeup complete, and she's back in the car, only this time she's playing Rihanna's "We Found Love." At that point, you have to ask, what is the end goal here? Is she trying to manifest a Fenty beauty campaign, a Fenty skin deal, Fenty hair promo, Savage x Fenty modeling? Or is the goal simply to gain acknowledgement and proximity to a global superstar? Because there is a huge difference between wanting a brand partnership and wanting public validation, and the behaviors we're seeing lean more towards the latter.
And then, just when the audience might assume Claressa is the only one chasing the Rihanna energy, Papoose suddenly reappears, again after Rihanna's tweet, and the timing is way too convenient. He posts a video with Teddy Pendergrass's "When Somebody Loves You Back" in the background, comments turned off. That alone is telling. If you believe in your narrative, if you believe in your love story, and if you believe your relationship is worth publicly putting on display, why disable the comments? Why restrict the public reaction if the reaction is supposed to be positive? That signals insecurity, or at least an awareness that the public might not buy what you're trying to sell. Then it gets even more explicit. He posts a side-by-side image of Rihanna and A$AP Rocky next to himself and Claressa. Now right there, that image alone tells us everything we need to know. That is not casual, that is not accidental, that is intentional branding. It is comparing, aligning, associating, and most importantly, attempting to elevate through proximity. And this is where history matters, because this is exactly the same narrative strategy Papoose used during his time with Remy Ma. The power couple branding, the black love branding, the public unity messaging, the visible devotion, the poetic captions, the speeches, the performance of loyalty. That was Papoose's brand when Remy was involved, and at that time it was viewed as authentic because it was built slowly and without a celebrity catalyst. But here, it only materializes after Rihanna acknowledged Claressa Shields, and that makes it feel artificial. It makes it feel opportunistic. It makes it feel like Papoose isn't celebrating love, he's celebrating visibility. That distinction matters. Now, let's dissect the caption, because that is where the entire narrative cracks wide open. Papoose describes Claressa as having a big heart, a big smile, and says people assume she's rugged because she's a fighter, but he goes on to emphasize how well she takes care of her body. Then he directs people to zoom in on her small hands, small feet, and unbelievably smooth skin. Then he concludes by stating she's a very beautiful black woman and that the way she loves can inspire people. The issue here isn't that he complimented her body, it's that he almost exclusively complimented her body. There's a difference between praising someone's physical attributes and celebrating a love story, because when Papoose loved Remy Ma, he wasn't writing captions about her small hands or smooth skin. He was writing about loyalty, he was writing about sacrifice, he was writing about emotional connection, he was writing about being there through prison sentences, hardships, and career challenges. He was writing about partnership, not cosmetics. Here, there is no mention of how they met, how long they've been together, what they've overcome, what makes their bond meaningful, or why he loves her in the first place. Everything about the caption centers Claressa as a commodity rather than a partner. And then Claressa reposts it and adds, "Peace to Rihanna and Rocky. Wow, family life looks great on them." Now that line is extremely telling. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky were millionaires long before they had children. They were already famous, they already had stability, they already had success. Life already looked great. So what exactly is Claressa implying? Is she saying family life looks great because of the fame? Is she correlating the celebrity status with fulfillment? Is she projecting? Or is it subtle shade? Because it could be read multiple ways, and the fact that it is ambiguous makes it even more interesting. What's fascinating here is that nothing about Rihanna's original tweet framed Claressa Shields and Papoose as a power couple. Rihanna was talking about A$AP Rocky, how deeply she feels about him, and how gone she is for her own partner. That was the context. Rihanna wasn't comparing relationships, she wasn't highlighting couple goals, she wasn't throwing out endorsements, she was literally speaking about her personal romantic experience.
But instead of receiving Rihanna's tweet as an isolated personal reflection, Claressa and Papoose treated it as a cosign for their relationship. They treated it like Rihanna had placed them on the same pedestal as herself and Rocky. And that is where the extreme leap happens, because a mention is not the same as a validation, acknowledgement is not the same as endorsement, and public attention is not the same as public approval. This is why the entire thing reads as performative. If this was about love, we would have seen this same level of public softness and affection months ago. If this was about authenticity, the narrative wouldn't have needed Rihanna to ignite it. If this was about devotion, it wouldn't look like a PR rollout. What's even more interesting is that Rihanna follows Remy Ma, not Papoose, not Claressa. That detail alone shifts the dynamic. It shows Rihanna is aware of who's who, but she chose who she wanted to follow long before any of this unfolded. That tells you something.
However, the story begins in an unexpected moment of tension involving Papoose and 50 Cent. After 50 Cent threw some public shots, Papoose seemingly evaporated from the online space. For someone who is ordinarily not shy about posting or participating in culture, his sudden disappearance was dramatic. He didn't clap back, didn't defend himself, didn't clarify, and didn't even show symbolic presence on social media. It was as if the moment 50 Cent applied pressure, Papoose pulled the eject button and vanished into the digital night. And it wasn't just a simple break. The break came after allegations and rumors were already swirling in the air, making the silence feel heavier than if he had simply logged off for no reason. During this period, 50 Cent also made posts referencing Claressa Shields, which added another layer to the narrative. And yet, interestingly, Papoose did not emerge to acknowledge, address, defend, or even shade anything connected to Claressa Shields during that time. The absence spoke loudly. It created the impression that either he did not want to engage, or he did not feel he needed to, both possibilities making viewers wonder what was happening behind the scenes. But what made everything stranger was the fact that Papoose resurfaced only briefly, and only when there appeared to be potential clout on the horizon. Because when he thought that 50 Cent believed a song he recorded back in December was a diss track, suddenly Papoose materialized for a moment, not to clarify the 50 Cent situation, not to comment on Claressa Shields, but seemingly to posture within music relevance. That brief reappearance was fleeting. It felt experimental, almost testing the waters to see whether the public perception had shifted. And as quickly as he emerged, he disappeared again. That was phase one of the story, the vanishing act. While Papoose was doing his disappearing and reappearing routine, Claressa Shields was moving very differently. Claressa is not someone who appears afraid of social media or public attention. Quite the opposite. She leaned into the platforms, leaned into engagement, and leaned into visibility. But what made the situation noteworthy is how often that visibility seemed attached to Rihanna. Claressa Shields quoted Rihanna twice on Twitter X, seemingly seeking attention, acknowledgement, or validation from the superstar billionaire. In one instance, she quoted Rihanna's tweet about the type of gone she is over A$AP Rocky, and Claressa Shields responded, "Period, Rihanna. Only way to be about a good man is the good man in the room with us." It read like someone volunteering a comparison no one asked for, attempting to align her situation with Rihanna and Rocky's. And then Claressa Shields retweeted the Shade Room's coverage of Rihanna's tweet, quoting Rihanna again and adding, "If I ain't the greatest, who is?" along with a meme of herself. Instead of letting Rihanna's tweet exist in its context, Claressa Shields repeatedly turned it into self-marketing. Her moves did not stop there. Claressa Shields also plugged her Versus Everybody t-shirts as a direct extension of the viral Rihanna moment. The positioning was strategic. Step 1, attach yourself to Rihanna through social posting. Step 2, use that attention spike to push product. Many celebrities do this, but the eagerness and frequency made it obvious.
Then she quoted another person's comment saying, "For people to not like you, they sure will watch the F out of you," to which Claressa responded with, "Lol, I'm really loved." These were all attempts to reframe public attention as support, regardless whether the attention was critical, curious, or chaotic. And then came another layer of performative correlation. Hop hopped on Snapchat, or as many call it, the Snappity Chat, where she was seen in her car listening to Janet Jackson's "I Get Lonely." This alone was not particularly suspicious, but the timing made people raise eyebrows. The following day, after Rihanna publicly said her name, Claressa Shields re-emerged on Snapchat again, this time glam, hair done, makeup finished, outfit on point, and listening to Rihanna's "We Found Love" in her car. It was almost cinematic, as if this was the soundtrack to a transformation moment. But it also raised a question. Was this about receiving acknowledgement from Rihanna, or was this a moment to attempt to push proximity to a superstar? Because the implication was clear. Claressa felt seen, and she wanted the world to see her being seen.
However, the bigger question remained. Was she going to receive anything beyond acknowledgement? Was this going to lead to Fenty Beauty, Fenty Skin, Savage X Fenty, Fenty Hair, a brand collab? Or was the dopamine hit simply from the fact that a billionaire cultural icon typed her name into the internet? That question lingered, unresolved. The moment Rihanna tweeted Claressa Shields' name was the moment the narrative shifted. For Claressa, it was a validation. For her fanbase, it was a shock. For the public, it was mildly amusing but not deeply meaningful. But for Papoose, it was a portal, because after weeks of silence, hesitation, and avoidance of anything connected to Claressa or 50 Cent, Papoose suddenly popped back onto Instagram like the entrance of a character whose storyline had been paused until the right plot device reactivated him. His return was strategic and telling. He posted a side-by-side photo collage of Rihanna and Rocky on one side and himself alongside Claressa Shields on the other. Not only that, but he used Teddy Pendergrass's classic "When Somebody Loves You Back" as the audio backing. And to add another layer, he turned the comments off. In social media culture, turning off comments is its own form of communication. It says, "I want to broadcast a message, but I don't want public accountability, critique, interpretation, or discourse." That decision alone signaled sensitivity, fragility, or a desire to control narrative rather than interact with it. And that is when the eyebrows collectively rose, because the question became, why resurface now? Why this post? Why this comparison? And why project a couple's aesthetic after refusing to publicly address the rumored entanglement until Rihanna provided cultural validation? The caption Papoose wrote was odd. He began by describing Claressa Shields as someone with a big heart and always wearing a big smile. He then described how people assume she's rugged due to her role as a fighter, but then shifted into a very detailed examination of her physical features, noting her small hands, small feet, and incredibly smooth skin. He raved about her body and physical attributes before concluding that she is a very beautiful Black woman who can inspire others through the way she loves. What was missing, glaringly missing, was any expression of his love for her. There was no romantic recollection, no emotional depth, no relational context, no explanation of their dynamic, no acknowledgement of how long they've been involved, no baseline clarity about their connection. Instead, the entire post read like a man attempting to showcase a woman's physical attributes in order to prove to the audience that she is worthy of attention, not that he loves her. It was telling because, in the past, Papoose wrote dissertations about Remy Ma. He did it unprovoked, without a celebrity mention, without an anniversary, without external attention, and without pressure. He posted her with passion and devotion because it was internal motivation. With Claressa, the motivation appeared external. It appeared reactive. It appeared performative.
Claressa Shields immediately responded to Papoose's post by tagging Rihanna and Rocky and writing, "Peace to Rihanna and Rocky. Wow, family life looks great on them." The wording was peculiar. "Family life looks great on them" implied that life did not already look great when they were multimillionaire, globally adored celebrities prior to having children. It created a hierarchy where family was the upgrade rather than the fame and success that preceded it. But what was made this stranger was the implied suggestion that Claressa and Papoose saw themselves being aligned with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. It's as if they interpreted Rihanna's tweet not as Rihanna speaking about Rocky, but as Rihanna co-signing their relationship, which she did not. Rihanna's tweet was not about validating Claressa's situation. It was Rihanna expressing how deeply she felt about her man. Claressa and Papoose reworked the message into a manufactured comparison. It was a stretch, and audiences noticed the stretch. The interpretation problem is at the core of this situation. Rihanna was talking about the type of emotional gone she is over Rocky, not crowning Claressa and Papoose as a power couple. But Claressa and Papoose converted it into a couple's goals moment, using Rihanna's cultural weight to try and level themselves up within a hierarchy they were not placed in by the public. This wasn't about black love discourse or power couple discourse. It was about validation, alignment, and proximity to celebrity. And when proximity replaces authenticity, things start looking like brand campaigns rather than relationships. People began asking, if Papoose had this level of admiration for Claressa Shields, why didn't he show any of it when 50 Cent made comments? Why didn't he show any of it before Rihanna entered the chat? Why was he absent until celebrity validation made the situation feel marketable? Why was the first true public gesture centered around cosign culture rather than relational substance?
And now let's talk about Papoose's brand, because for years, his brand has been built on being the devoted husband, the stand-up man, the poetic partner, the embodiment of public loyalty. But what we're seeing now suggests the brand itself was either more performance than substance or hinged specifically on Remy Ma, because the energy is not the same, the writing is not the same, the devotion is not the same, and the authenticity is not there. And this circles back to visibility. Papoose loves public love, but only when it serves him. He loves public validation, but only when the audience approves. He loves being seen as loyal, but only within narratives that elevate his image. When 50 Cent entered the picture and threatened the narrative, Papoose vanished. When Rihanna entered and elevated the narrative, Papoose reappeared. That pattern is not coincidence, it is strategy. So at the end of the day, this entire sequence of events feels like an attempt to leverage Rihanna's name to create a power couple storyline that has not been earned organically. It feels less like love and more like marketing. It feels less like partnership and more like positioning. It feels less like affection and more like social climbing. And none of this would even matter if